I'm Christy,
And I'm Kathy.
and this is The Psychic
And the Skeptic. Welcome back to The Psychic and the Skeptic. And on this episode, we will be opening our Cryptid Files once again, talking about the little people, where the unseen meets the unexplained.
Now, this episode explores something that appears across nearly every culture on Earth. Stories of small human-like beings that are often called these little people, depending upon the culture that you look at.
Right, they've been called fairies, duende, mehune, or brownies. And those are mostly from the European areas in particular. And brownies is a term that we borrowed for a level in Girl Scouts in the United States. Brownies were like little helper creatures. And so it was very fitting for that age group of elementary school girls in younger elementary days, like 2nd to 5th grade, I believe.
I think that's so cool because you
Yeah.
know what? I never knew that about brownies, but that's neat.
Right. People think brownie, Girl Scouts, oh, that's the cake because Girl Scouts sell cookies. So they're thinking, oh, the brownies must be the brownie cake.
I thought that.
No, it's the
Again,
little
you know,
helper brownies.
yeah,
Yep.
it's cookies. It's not brownies. But that's
We don't
really
want to
neat.
eat the brownies. They're
Right.
cute. Yes.
Very neat.
But in indigenous traditions, they're far more than folklore. They're watchers, they're protectors, and sometimes, once again, they're teachers.
We're in Oklahoma, for those of you guys that don't know a whole lot about us. In Oklahoma, we have a lot of Native American cultures because this is the state where the 5 civilized tribes were relocated. Anyway, we did a residential investigation, and I remember there were some scratches. There were some, I don't know, mischievous type activities. And a couple of the Native American investigators and friends of mine that I was with, they were on my team for a little bit, they could have swore up and down that it was a case of the little people. And that's where I first learned about the little people. But I was
Right.
like, I don't know if I believe that.
And that's how these topics end up in our podcast because we've come across it through investigations, or you have through some of our investigations, or they're topics that we've heard
And we're
kind of
curious about.
overlap with paranormal experiences. So it's not always just ghosts, which is why we do Cryptid Files too. Or
Right.
maybe it's ghosts that they see, or as the skeptic, maybe it's a mistaken identity. So depending on your perspective, symbols shaped by human psychology, environmental awareness, and cultural storytelling all play into the experiences people have with some of these cryptids, just like little people.
Right. And we've mentioned some of the folklore and stuff in the past on how there's sometimes even a little grain of truth in some of the folklore. So now, as far as the little people go, depending upon, again, on the culture, you're looking at places like forests, mountains, spaces that are considered sacred to some of the native people. And people have reported these encounters with something small, intelligent, and something that definitely can be mischievous or watches them.
Right. And for once, it's not about the folklore. This time, we have some documented reports with dates, locations, and witnesses. But what's fascinating is the consistency across continents. As we mentioned earlier, we have different types from Europe, and there's Asian creatures, these little people. And we're going to focus on little people from North America and 3 tribes in particular: the Cherokee tribe, Algonquian, and the Lakota tribes. People describe them as small humanoid beings tied to nature. That suggests that there's this shared psychological or cultural pattern across the world.
And in between these cultures, they actually believe that these little people are real. And there are several different types of descriptions that each of these native cultures actually have on how they describe what they look like. And they often link them to things like hidden realms or linear spaces.
From an archaeological standpoint, they've found this skeleton, and they called it a Hobbit skeleton.
I've heard of that.
That is not necessarily linked to the folklore, but it's referenced as a way to explain they might potentially exist. And the skeleton was a 3-foot tall hominin, and it's from a different species called Homo floresiensis. And this was found in Indonesia in 2003. So it belonged to a nearly complete female individual dating to about 100 to 60,000 years ago, which is just crazy, right?
Those little people are sure ancient, aren't they?
This is technically a different species. It's not Homo sapiens, so it's a different animal that just happens to be 3'6", right?
Mhm.
And it had a tiny brain, large teeth for their small size, shrugged forward shoulders, no chin, and a receding forehead. And it also had relatively large feet in proportion to the short legs. And apparently this person had used stone tools, hunted small elephants. I don't know how they knew that.
Being so small
And-
themselves.
Right? Maybe it was like,
Hey, it's like a dog who's an ankle biter. Going right after their ankles.
yeah, small elephants. So baby elephants, perhaps. Maybe they were
Aw,
short people elephants.
maybe. Way back when.
Maybe the elephants had their own shortened version.
So listen, Miss Scientist,
Well,
I disagree.
But they found small elephants with this, apparently. Were they baby or just smaller, large elephants?
Who knows?
But they also hunted large rodents. They fought off predators such as the giant Komodo dragon, and they may have used fire as well. So they were starting to become intelligent. But again,
They
this
were
is
so stupid, is what you're saying?
just they're not sure if they used fire, and that was in the beginning of intelligence. And so the problem is, one, it's from Indonesia. So have we found these other skeletons in other places? But maybe not yet. There have been small skeleton hoaxes in the 19th and 20th century, proven to be infants, primates, or just fabricated, all in the search to try to prove that this little people phenomenon exists. Perhaps these other species that are closely related to humans, because they share the genus Homo, then I could see that there would be some archaeological resemblance in the sense we've seen the whole evolutionary guide thing, even though everything seems to fall in its own species.
You're talking about where man just slowly, or man evolves out of ape. Is that what you're saying?
That's what the claim is.
Mm.
Yet they're separated by a
theory.
species.
Yeah.
We're still closely related, but were they just shorter in stature? We have different average heights even across the world. In certain continents, people are shorter than in other places.
That is true.
I'm 5 foot tall, so sometimes people call me a little person. We have conditions like dwarfism, which is a medical condition characterized by short stature, defined as an adult less than 4'10", technically. So I'm good by like about 2 inches there.
Oh, I'm good too. Yeah. By what? A foot and a half?
Yeah, you're taller though.
Yeah, I'm 5'7".
Oh yeah, but this is a 3 foot tall hominin.
Right.
I think that in archaeology, when they find something strange or different, is it another species or is it somebody who was a human who had hormonal disorder that caused them to have an abnormally short stature? But let's dig into specifically what they were seeing. What are these claims from the different tribes and how did this legend come about?
The first one is going to be from the Cherokee. And in the Cherokee tradition, these little people, if I can pronounce this correctly, is Yunwi Tsunsdi. And that does translate into little people. Now, they're supposed to be small, peaceful, but powerful helpers. And their origin belief is that they were created before humans to guide and protect nature. Now, these little people supposedly aren't myths. They're spiritual beings with agency, emotion, and purpose, often described as being 2 to 3 feet tall, human-like, silent, and fast-moving. And they are felt before they are seen. So for an example, on that one investigation that I referenced to earlier, scratch marks were noted by these homeowners that lived there before. And so when I read felt before seen, that reminded me, if they're that quick, they could scratch you and they're like, gone. And you wouldn't even know it.
When I saw that, I was thinking, felt like you feel a presence, kind of like you're EMF is
Mm-hmm.
high in your house and you feel like someone's watching you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is an explanation for that sensation. But yeah, you feel like somebody's watching you, right?
Yes. In this case, though, I don't,
Right. Eh,
but these stories, though, they started from oral tradition. So something about a lot of your Native American tribes, especially
yeah.
those that was before a time when written language was developed. And here comes the brownie points as a former social studies teacher. A lot of them did not have the written language. So everything was passed down orally.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you'd have your oral storytellers. And that was very common in a lot of
Oh,
these
yeah.
Native American culture.
Just worldwide.
Yeah. And these oral traditions were often used, again, to teach behavior. So, especially respect for nature, for community, like what we were talking about on some of the other little cryptids that we talk about,
Yeah, there's a
to teach a
common
lesson.
theme with all of these different creatures. That
Mm-hmm.
storytelling is a way to document and keep the attention of people they're trying to instruct and give information to.
Right.
And if you do it in a story, this story really can strike an emotion with you,
Mm-hmm.
causing you to behave in a certain way.
Absolutely. Now, their roles supposedly go beyond teaching, and there's three main types for this teaching. You have rock dwellers. They're protective, they're linked to caves and healing. You have the dogwood forest dwellers, gentle, and they watch over children. Then you have those that are known as tricksters, not evil, but corrective, which are the ones that my Native American friends thought were at that residential.
Oh, yeah. So they're just playing tricks on the people who live there, toying with them, maybe.
Yeah, and sometimes they say they do that out of a corrective action. Hey, we saw what you did. We didn't like that. And so now we're going to teach you a little lesson.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, they can also appear as helpers, guardians, and the tricksters can appear across a lot of these different cultures. And you're going to see that in one of the other tribes we're going to talk about. There's also a consistent encounter type story. Supposedly, lost children are guided home, grieving individuals are comforted, and people can often hear soft singing in the woods. Now, Cherokee teachings are clear. You don't call them. They choose you. That was something that my friends taught me and said that, hey, with the little people, they choose who they want to interact with. Now, there's also strict behavioral rules. You don't mock them, you don't imitate them, and you don't just call their name out casually, because there could be repercussions.
This kind of goes with some rules to paranormal investigation. It's almost like not provoking, or we don't invite whoever is there in general. We specifically address the spirit that we think we're talking to, because maybe they didn't want us to open up anything. Don't call them out. They'll just choose you if they want to talk to you or interact with you, versus opening up a doorway and inviting all kinds of negative stuff in. So maybe it evolved from something like that. That's pretty universal.
It could be. Yeah. And in this culture, disrespect would definitely lead to consequences, getting lost, being confused, hearing strange voices. And psychologically, there's a fear of this altering perception and navigation. So when we look at the encounters, Cherokee oral history doesn't really give dates in a Western sense of time and date like what we do, but it does provide a consistent encounter type pattern. So with lost children guided home, voices calling from the woods, small figures appear and then they vanish. And again, I know some of these are the same across cultures and stories passed down to reinforce behaviors. But in some of these, there are some parallels that do exist. There's all sorts of folklore from the Appalachian Mountains. So there's reports of small shadow figures, whispering voices, and being in the woods and just suddenly being disoriented, not knowing what's going on.
That is really common, though. I mean, visually, it's trees for miles and hills and mountains. So I would say that would be a normal phenomenon, not something caused by some creature.
Have you ever heard about the Appalachian tales and stuff? Some of that stuff is scary, man.
Oh, there's all kinds, but it's so vast and it's dangerous. So it makes sense that these tales are told over generations as cautionary tales.
Right. Now, I do have some cases that we can go over. And it starts roughly from about 1960s, and it takes place in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina. This account is shared among many Appalachian locals, and it does tell of a young boy who wandered off one of the trails within the Great Smoky Mountains. Then later, when he was found, he described being approached by these small type people. They gave him berries and water, and they guided him safely back. Now, that's some sweet people, little people. So it's not like the little people in the Cherokee tradition are all bad.
No.
They're not. It sounds like they're good.
No, I think just the interpretation of bad maybe came from the tricksters.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't like to be tricked, so they see that as a negative thing.
Oh, sure.
But they are considered little helpers in some parts of the world.
Yes. And the scientific standpoint might say that, hey, when kids are under stress, they create comforting narratives to help them, to comfort them,
He could
and
have
to
been
help them.
disoriented and dehydrated and
Yeah.
and lost, and that all can play into the emotions and what he thinks he's experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next case occurred in the 1980s in western North Carolina near the Cherokee boundary area. This is where an adult hiker had reported hearing whispering voices that were calling his name.
Now, that could be a ghost.
Maybe. Residual, echoing. Maybe it was an owl. Who's there?
Oh my gosh, that was so cheesy, but I laughed at it. All right.
Because it was actually funny.
Maybe a little.
He saw some small figures moving between the trees. I mean, there's lots of small creatures in the woods, right? He
Squirrel.
became disoriented despite knowing the trail. So he's hiked this before, so it was unusual for him to become disoriented.
He just had some wacky tobacco, and that's why.
I would say if he's hiking and if he's on something like the Appalachian Trail, that's a long trail. How long had he been hiking? Was he dehydrated? Dehydration can cause confusion and disorientation. But he later learned from a local Cherokee resident that the area was considered little people territory.
We need to do an episode on that. I'm
But-
all about the
on the Appalachian
Appalachians.
Trail. Oh, yeah.
my
I bet
gosh,
there's lots of
folklore.
haunted claims along the trail.
Uh-huh.
But it is, for those who don't know, this trail runs from New England all the way down into Georgia
Mhm.
on the Atlantic side of the United States. It's a huge trail and people hike it. Like they will hike the entire trail. It's a dream for many people. So
Mhm.
which came first? Were there medical
chicken
issues
or the egg?
along the way and that's where all the folklore came from? Or is it truly paranormal now? People explain it as.
I don't know. I think I believe about the Appalachian and the stories and stuff behind it. How could you not? But listen, to all of our listeners out there, if you have ever been in the Appalachians and you have ever experienced anything, or let's say you grew up and you know about some of these folk tales, or I don't know, maybe your great granny or whatever told you, whatever the case may be, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, write in and we'll feature a listener tale
Oh, yes.
from the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, absolutely. And trust me, we got an episode coming up on the Appalachian folks. Just
For sure.
it's in the to-do works.
But it's so common. There's got to be somebody out there listening that has an experience or at least
Oh, yeah.
maybe knows a family member and they're willing to share their story.
Mhm.
But disorientation in a dense forest isn't unusual. Auditory experiences like hearing your name clearly called, though, like you said, that could be a little bit harder to dismiss outright, but there still could be an explanation for it.
Of course. Okay, so let's go on to case 3. This is back from 2001. It's near Cherokee, North Carolina. Now, a family was camping near the Koala boundary, Qualla, and they reported that their child was laughing and talking to someone outside of their tent. Now, that could be an imaginary friend, right? Or maybe grandma's ghost or whatever. But in connection with this, they also found small footprints around their campsite in the morning. And they also noticed that their camp objects had been moved slightly. Now, from what I understand from this report, no physical evidence was ever really collected. And again, the focus is the same. The children are claiming little people, and this is another connection where the little people are guiding and helping children.
Okay, but the small footprints around the campsite in the morning, if she was talking to someone outside the tent, how do they know they're not her footprints?
Because the bottom of her tennis shoes had unicorns imprinted on them. and the small footprints were just feet prints. They knew it wasn't because of
Oh,
the
like
unicorn.
barefoot footprints?
I'm assuming, yeah.
Right. I'm picturing she could have been barefoot too, and it was her feet. Or
I
how do
think
they
they
know
would have
where?
known a
Like,
difference.
that's the life of the skeptic. I don't see what they see, and I don't know that I trust that they know what they're looking at because I don't know them. So it's hard to be like, what? How much did they know? What did they see? How close did they look at it?
Yeah.
Right? Were they objective in trying to debunk it? And many of our clients are that reach out to us from the paranormal side of things.
Because they
those are
know
some of the things
Kathy's
that I
coming.
listen for is like, what did they do to try to rule it out? Did they check this? Did they look at that?
Mhm.
And most people are going to have some disbelief until they're left with no explanation. And
Mhm.
that's when it gets interesting.
That's true.
So case 4 is in 2017 on the Appalachian Trail in Georgia. So it's in that southernmost section of the trail. There was a solo backpacker, and this was documented in an online hiking journal. So this backpacker was feeling watched for hours. They heard light footsteps matching his pace. I've heard similar stories like that. Like you take a
So have
step
I.
and you hear a step. You take a step and you hear another step.
Mm-hmm.
You pause, it pauses. So it's only moving when you move. Kind of creepy. They caught glimpses of small shadowy figures, which of course that creates a little bit of a fight or flight response. And
Right.
maybe your heart rate's elevated and you've got a little bit of adrenaline running, and that can make you feel like you're being watched. Your body's on alert at that
Yeah, you're
point.
hyper vigilant.
Did they
Chicken.
first feel like they were being watched, then they saw the shadowy figures? Because maybe that's their brain and their eyes playing tricks on them because your senses are heightened because you feel like you're being watched. And then on the flip side, you think you see shadows and now you feel like you're being watched. So it was like this vicious circle no matter which way you look at it. But he
Right.
described it as not threatening, but very aware of his presence,
Right.
especially with the matching the footprints. All right, who's there? Come out, show yourself, right?
Well, still, there's a pattern in all these in this Cherokee region and folklore for these little people. So, in these modern accounts, you're going to see consistent things like the children are protected and guided, they interact calmly. Adults are experiencing disorientation. Voices are heard, especially name calling. With these little people and these little the little reports, oh my gosh, with these little
on the
people,
little podcast that we're doing.
these little people, again, they're not supposed to be aggressive, right? Just they make you aware and they let you know, hey, that we're here, and they're offering guidance. So they're
Little
not
parental
mean.
figures, little
Right.
guides.
Right. But they can, depending upon if you're not of good character, then they can definitely be tricksters to teach you a lesson.
So now we're going to talk about the Pukwudgie from the Algonquian.
The
tribe.
Pukwudgie, what?
The Pukwudgie, which I'd actually heard this before as a kid. So I grew up in New England, and this is an area in our country where the Algonquian tribes were. And I just figured it was just a nonsense name as a kid growing up. So I'm glad we're covering this because this brings back a little bit of childhood for me. Like you had heard about little people in one of your paranormal investigations.
These are different too in the way the little people
Right.
actually look like people. They're just little.
Yes.
These don't.
This is different because now we're getting into a tradition where things get a little bit more dangerous. So the Pukwudgie is 2 to 4 feet tall and gray skinned, sometimes with glowing eyes. They remind me of Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. He was
Yes.
Smeagol.
Or like a real creepy
Yes.
looking troll.
Yes, the one who was obsessed. And the ring gave him powers to live longer, and he was a few hundred years old. So he looked all old and decrepit and hunched over. So very similar to that, if you know that movie or the books.
Saw one of these, I'd turn around and run.
Yeah. You see something that doesn't look normal. Right?
No.
It's not just a smaller person. This is
Right.
some kind of creature. So
And
it brings on a little bit of a fear too, right?
For sure. I know it would for me. And so you guys know we will post pictures of all 3 of these little
Right.
people types for you guys on our Facebook and Instagram page if you'd like to check them out, see what we're talking about.
Some of this historical oral tradition predates European contact. We see a shift from helper to trickster, and sometimes they're even hostile. They can shapeshift, they can turn invisible, which might be like that claim where they see things disappear and reappear again in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
They can mimic voices. So you are talking and then you hear something copying you, which could be an echo in the woods, right? I'm going right into debunking here. But they're also known or said to influence your thoughts.
They're very intrusive is what it sounds like to me.
Sure. Tricksters, right?
Mm-hmm.
This mirrors known psychological phenomenon, though, especially in the dense forest. So aside from echoes and noises off in the distance, it's also common to get disoriented in forests,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Is
So
that where their main dwelling is the forest?
it seems
Okay.
it seems to be the theme with all of these creatures. But some stories say it goes a little further than that, that they've been known to lure people off of cliffs, shoot some magic darts at them,
Wow.
or they take revenge.
So don't piss them off, basically.
Right.
Mhm.
So again, pointing back to these cautionary tales about dangerous terrain, like careful near the cliffs, you might get pushed off, or maybe that person actually just slipped and fell, right? Okay.
Maybe.
Or against predators, they look kind of predatory. If anything looks a little strange, it may look a little human-like, which is not like you. This could be some creature out in the woods. Cautionary tale, avoiding predators, and also making sure you don't get lost. Because if you get lost, you get disoriented and then you start having experiences.
I wonder if the theory about the forest, especially with this type of little people, is because the East Coast, there's lots of thick forest up there with more trees, rather than when you start to get into the plains, the trees here, for example, are not always that big. They're not always that old. So I
Right.
wonder if that's why they become more of like a forest creature.
Yeah, when things blend in, there's all kinds of camouflage, right? So the animals
Mhm.
are meant to blend in. So I can see if a creature was visible in front of a certain backdrop, and as they move deeper into the forest, it looks like they disappear, but it could just be their natural colors that blend in with their environment
Like a
as a
chameleon.
survival instinct.
Mhm.
So I can see confusion there. If you're lost and dehydrated, you're a little disoriented, and then you see something that's real, but your fears are heightened, and now you're thinking you're witnessing something different.
Right.
So a myth can explain that conflict between humans and what's unknown.
And just like in the other ones where it talked about their names and all that stuff being called. So it sounds like there's going to be some correlation in these little people in one way or the other.
And yeah, there are modern reports that match some of these older reports, like voices calling names, small figures in your periphery. Your peripheral vision is not meant to be as crisp as what you would see straight on. It's meant to detect shadows and movement, so it makes sense that would get triggered in a confusing environment.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is explainable, but consistent across all of these stories. One of the first documented accounts is from the earliest written records as early as the 1600s. So we're into the 17th century here. European settlers in what is now Massachusetts documented encounters with what they called, quote, small wild men of the woods.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. These accounts were recorded in their journals and missionary writings, often referencing what they were told by indigenous people.
Okay.
So,
Did they also witness them? And they heard
well,
the indigenous
that's part of that
stories?
psychological phenomenon. You hear a story about watch out for these little people in the woods, and then you're out in the woods and you think you see something. It must be these little people that these indigenous people had
Warn them
explained to me.
about.
In their journal, they're referencing these stories.
I
Just
got
like
you.
this Indian man had told me I saw in the woods. That's where these things got documented. So was it a power of suggestion? Maybe.
Could have been.
Again, it aligns perfectly with the Wampanoag oral tradition. These weren't new entities. They were already known as pukwudgies before the Europeans had colonized the area. So from a scientific perspective, early settlers were entering unfamiliar environments. Dense forests weren't really something that they were used to. This is new wildlife, new animals here. They look a little bit different than what they're used to. And that psychological stress, the illnesses that they were dealing with,
Oh, the lack of food.
dehydration, yes, lack of
Mhm.
food. So misinterpretation was very possible.
I could definitely see that.
So a little closer to our time here, by about 100 years ago, there was a case in 1927 at Mound State Park in Indiana. A 10-year-old boy named Paul Startzman had reported seeing a little man with yellow hair while walking a trail.
Hmm.
So children are often reported as primary witnesses, and many traditions are considered more open, and we say that even about our own paranormal investigating when we have children in a residential case, often being the first to report, and then parents either witness it themselves or they're just unable to rule out
They
other
can tend to
things.
be more vulnerable.
Right. They're more prone to imagination and misinterpretation as well. And parents get concerned because their child is afraid.
Right.
And they can't find any logical explanation, so they seek help. Or in this case, perhaps they couldn't really see any reason not to believe this 10-year-old boy, this Paul Startzman. Shortly after, in the 1930s, in Freetown Fall River State Forest, this is in Massachusetts, near Rhode Island, park rangers had reported seeing small figures moving through the trees. And there were fires appearing without a clear origin. So it's interesting because these are rangers, they're pretty objective, they're not tourists, so they know the area, and they're definitely not children. So their imagination isn't running wild with them. That's a little bit more compelling because even though it's still anecdotal and there's no evidence there, there's multiple witnesses that are saying the same thing, leading to increased credibility. But my thought is, okay, you're seeing small figures moving through the trees. That could be anything. Why are we associating it with supposed little people? Maybe it's another cryptid.
Right.
Maybe it's the Jersey Devil.
I don't think I believed in that one.
I don't know. Or it could just be a raccoon.
It could be.
They can stand up. They got little paws that look like hands, don't they?
That's true. And they get into everything.
Looking for a picnic basket.
Right. Or a trash can to dump over and raid through.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this next case is from the 1960s to the 1970s, located in the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. So the Bridgewater Triangle, if you haven't heard of it, is very similar to the Bermuda Triangle, but in an area in Massachusetts where people have gone missing. Again, thick forests and things like that. So it's not just missing people, but there are also unexplained phenomenon happen in this area, and it's a geographic mapped area that's very much in a triangle. So it's its own local legend, and if you're from the area in Massachusetts or New England, you've probably heard of it.
Has there been like any traumatic thing that's happened to make it where
No,
it's
I mean,
more...
it's similar to the same kind of explanations we're talking about, disorientation in thick woods, and you get lost, everything looks the same no matter where you turn, and people go missing, and unfortunately, they are not found, and they may starve or dehydrate. The sightings in the paranormal seem to be elevated in these areas. So interesting, right?
It is.
But in this area, multiple witnesses have reported seeing small gray humanoids, the glowing eyes,
Aliens.
and figures near swamp edges. Did you say alien?
Aliens.
See?
Aliens. See?
What points it all to these little people? Why are we blaming Schmeagol here?
My precious.
So this region, again, like I said, is a hot spot. It's not surprising that we're thinking that there's something paranormal or cryptid going on here. And because of the old Pukwudgie legend, and we're in the Bridgewater Triangle, it heightens the psychological component for paranormal activity.
Right.
And there is a wide range of different types of paranormal phenomena that occur in this area. So this suggests clearly environmental/psychological factors that influence people's perception of what's going on.
Yeah, and there might be something to it overall, though.
Maybe
the
a little
Bermuda
both.
Triangle has extensively been studied, and they're learning more and more about it.
And we've got weather phenomena and magnetic, and maybe there's something magnetic.
It's something
going on
with
there.
magnetic pull.
But with paranormal theory, does that increase the ability for manifestation of paranormal activity? So, like in legend, sometimes there's a smidge of truth lying in there.
That's what we've repeatedly mentioned. There is a little bit of truth. All right, moving right along. Case 4, 1976, Hockomock Swamp. What a name.
I'm sorry, it's not like an Oklahoma name.
Wow.
No, we're up in a different part of the country with different native names, right?
That's true. Oh, is that a native name for up there?
Hockomock, yeah.
All right. Witnesses describe seeing a, quote, troll-like being with quills near the water.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, I was going to say, it reminds me of a porcupine or whatever. Those,
Yeah.
Of course, they don't have a troll-like head, but they are pretty ugly. And boy, those things stink.
Well, could we have porcupines? If you've never seen one, they are
can get
bigger
large.
than you would think.
But surely this person would be able to tell the difference.
You would think, but if you've never seen one.
But Anyway, this does match traditional descriptions almost exactly about this troll-like being. You also have in 2010 at Mound State Park in Indiana, you've got hikers who reported seeing glowing blue orbs, small humanoid figures that disappeared into the brush. Again, ET, phone home, could be alien. But this is interesting. This same location is the same one that was reported in 1927 in a sighting. So
Yeah, that's the one I just mentioned earlier, the Mound State Park, the
uh-huh.
10-year-old boy, Paul Startzman.
So we got two locations where similar activity is
Yeah,
happening.
and the boy, I think, was hiking as well. And so these are other hikers in that same area. But again, it disappears into the bush, which makes me think if this is a creature that's native to this area, they're going to camouflage. And so if you've seen deer in the woods and you ever see them move, it's like they disappear because all of a sudden now their backdrop blends in. They step in front of something that's a similar color as they are. And it's
Right.
almost like you can't see them. It's defensive for them to help them hide from predators.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
And then in Freetown State Forest in Massachusetts in 2016, a woman was walking her dog and reported seeing a small humanoid, same thing, same description, with glowing eyes, matted dark hair, and suddenly disappeared.
She missed the quills, man.
Yeah. She wasn't alone. Her account was later corroborated by someone she told shortly after. So they had said they thought they saw the same thing.
Since the 1990s, there has been a lot more reports in the New England area. These reports have increased, especially in Freetown State Forest and the Bridgewater Triangle. Witnesses describe similar things, being followed, hearing voices, seeing 3-foot-tall figures watching them from the tree. And the ironic thing is that many of these witnesses have claimed to never have heard the term pukwudgie. What is that?
Pukwudgie.
There you go. Now tell me something. How can you be in that area, especially if you grew up there and never heard of that legend? You even said it was common.
I heard of it, yeah. But I didn't really know what it was. I just did some creature or some mythical thing. You know,
A cryptid.
Or kids make up terms of things like, oh, you've got cooties. Who made that up? Like, that term. So I just figured it was just a silly term for something spooky ooky.
Okay, so let's move on to our third and final little people. This is going to come from the Lakota tribe. Now, this is called the Lakota Canotila, if I say that right. They are known to be gentle, protective, and very spiritually aligned, and are known to be tree dwellers, often warning hunters that are in the forest. So there is a picture of this one, and this reminds me of Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. They kind of look like part of a tree, and they've got plants and stuff growing out of them, but they've got a humanoid type looking face. They're supposed to be less trickster, more of a guide. They can also appear as flickers of light, coming in the way of a soft voice, movement in trees and dreams. This also kind of reminds me of, do you know how you hear about there's whispers in the forest and that it's like the tree spirits?
The trees are talking.
No, true.
Do they actually scream when they fall down and no one's there to watch?
Oh my gosh. What is up with the cheesy jokes today? No, but I do believe that there is something. I'm not real big into like certain things, but I do believe there's something with the growth and the spirit of a tree. I don't know. Just don't ask me. Just saying. That's a whole nother episode. But anyway, they're supposed to align more closely with altered states of perception, especially in emotional or meditative states. They are said to help lost travelers, children, and future spiritual leaders. See, all that pointing to what I was talking about of being something going on with the trees. But anyway, you are supposed to give them respect. You don't disturb nature. You're very respectful of the forest in general.
Reinforcing that lesson to respect nature.
Right? Yeah. Don't chop down the trees.
Yes.
But they're also seen as messengers between worlds, also representatives of intuition and environmental awareness. So
it's Mother Nature.
Right.
Don't disturb Mother Nature. The trees are talking to you and warning you. And it's like trying to humanize plants so that we have more respect for them. I can see the teaching behind all of this.
Oh, absolutely. So we have some cases. So our first one is from the 1970s. It's in Black Hills, South Dakota. Supposedly, a Lakota elder said that when they were a child, he heard laughing in the trees. He saw small figures watching him, and he was guided away from a dangerous cliff edge. So instead of the pukwudgies or whatever they're called, trying to push you off the cliff, these Lakota ones, they're keeping you away from that dangerous cliff. So now, this Lakota elder shared this later on in his life during a cultural interview, not as a paranormal story so much, but as a lived experience. That was interesting.
I mean, that distinction matters because I was actually going to say this sounds more like paranormal activity. Could all of this be just the way people explain what they're experiencing? And all along, it's been something paranormal like a spirit guide. Or, I know, and this is a stretch coming from the skeptic,
Little
but
bit.
we have all these stories, and they all clearly come from different cultures and legends and things passed down. So the story's different depending on where you live. But is it all pointing to the same source?
I was going to say more culturally influenced, maybe in his case.
And what is the lesson that's being learned here? So what's the context of the conversation when these stories are passed? Is it maybe this story came about because people were destroying nature and cutting down trees and building more houses, and it's, hey, we need to respect the forest. Somebody has some weird disorienting experience and they're thinking the forest is, clearly it's alive. I get that, but alive in a different way, and they're scared about it. So this legend comes about from this experience.
Yeah, I could
And it's
absolutely
passed
see that.
down. But they truly believe that this is what's happening because they saw with their own eyes without realizing their eyes were playing tricks on them, like with pareidolia, maybe slightly dehydrated. And they have this this thing that happens with their brain.
Very real. Very well.
So in 1994, in Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, a teenager had a report. He saw a small glowing figure near a wooded creek. He felt like there was a sudden calm that came over him instead of a fear, and described what he thought, or hearing what he described as gentle talking without words.
Again, the trees whispering in the wind.
Yeah, or maybe he couldn't understand what they were saying, but it was clearly non-threatening. So he told elders who interpreted it as a protective encounter, not something to fear.
All right, 2008, Black Hills National Forest. There was a non-Indigenous hiker who reported that there was just a sudden complete silence that happened in the forest, followed by soft movement in the trees. And then he caught a brief glimpse of a small humanoid shape, again, ED, but he described his experience as very peaceful. But he also felt like he wasn't supposed to be there. So maybe it was a warning. Hey, dude, not the right area to be in. You need to scoot. But this could align with the idea of maybe he was entering into some sort of sacred, spiritually active space and he wasn't supposed to be there. Right?
Yeah. So in 2020, near Standing Rock area, a family had reported that their child was telling them about small forest friends. So
imaginary friends.
Imaginary friends, though. And that they left small offerings like sticks and food pieces. And they said that they were told to respect the trees. So how old was this child? Where did this come from? Had they been watching or reading or influenced by something else? That maybe these thoughts came to mind.
But because the leaving the small offerings, like the sticks and the food pieces, that's also very common with the Bigfoot phenomenon, because Bigfoot is also said to leave gifts. You can exchange a gift, and it's a way of communicating as a mutual respect.
So maybe not a little person, but a big person.
Right. So that makes me think, can you communicate with them this way, with these type of beings, by offering things like food and so forth? Anyway, again, across these accounts, you've got the same type of things. They're not hostile. They're not really tricksters, but they do put off this strong emotional calm feeling, and they're seen for guidance, for protection, and just for a little bit of that communication. So you could compare them all together. So if you looked at the little people according to the Cherokee, they're neutral, they're helpful. They help people like lost hikers, children, they guide people. The Pukwudgie, they're tricksters, and they're a little bit dangerous. And you could hear the voices, and they can also misguide you.
Right.
And then the Lakota, with these Canotila, they're very gentle, they're protective. It's calm encounters and warnings. So it sounds like 2 out of 3 ain't so bad. And just don't go out east where you got the Pukwudgie, because those are the ones that are going to get you. So it's just, you can see.
But the similarity is that they live in hidden places. They react to human
Mm-hmm.
behavior. They exist at the edge of perception.
Mm-hmm.
So just
Corner of
enough
your
to
eye.
make us think that we're experiencing something out of the ordinary. Whether they're real, symbolic, whether they serve a purpose, ultimately they're teaching respect, caution, and awareness, just like all of these other cryptids tend to do.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, sometimes just a little bit of truth goes a long ways and creates that folklore, like
Right.
the telephone effect.
But are they real? No.
Who knows?
Probably not. And why do we keep encountering them? The stories keep getting passed along. Like I heard Pukwudgie mentioned, and then people get curious. What's the story? What is that? What are you talking about?
Look, aren't we passing them on right now through this
Exactly.
podcast?
We're just making it worse.
No, hey, look, if you're listening to this, we're trying to give you just information on it. You're the one that's deciding. We're not trying to spread
The stories
it.
are fun too, and you
It
see
is. They are.
movies that have these creatures in them,
Mhm.
and storytelling is a form of entertainment. If you learn a lesson, and sometimes children don't understand hard lessons, and they need stories to help them to guide them. Even we play with their fear a little bit until logic kicks in, and
Right.
they understand that, okay, that was a story, but now I understand the why, and why it was
Mhm.
important to respect the woods, or to take care of myself so I don't get lost in the woods or disoriented and dehydrated, because that can be very dangerous. So
You got to prevent them. And I can
Yeah.
see that through
creating
it.
a fear for children, but also for adults that maybe need a little guidance too, that are maybe a little
Adult children, is that what you mean? I've known a
Right.
few of those in my life.
right. But from a paranormal perspective, is there something else going on here? I would say if the small, minute chance that this is something paranormal, I think it's a case of mistaken identity. Maybe it's not little people, but it's something else.
Quite possibly. I don't know. Regardless, I think these cryptid files are very fun. They're lighthearted
Yeah.
and you can learn a lot.
We joke a little just because, from our perspective, some things seem a little bit outlandish. So it's not meant as a disrespect to the culture, of course.
Not at all.
We're just trying to be lighthearted with it, because some of these things are a little hard for some to understand, and maybe others have grown up with it and have a deep respect for it. So we do have a respect for the culture.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, if you've grown up with the tellings and the stories, write in, let us know. Like we said earlier, we'd love to do some listener tells, right?
Yeah, we want to hear what your experience was. What did you witness? And share whether you lean towards the metaphysical in your belief, or maybe you have found a way to debunk, or maybe you're skeptical about it. So share your thoughts and your opinions on your experience.
Coming from the psychic, I can see some truth in some of this, but I'm kind of on your side on this
Right.
one.
Yeah, maybe not little people, but maybe they had some kind of encounter with something else.
Right. They do say that certain things are alive in nature,
Right.
you know, to be alive in the forest. Who knows?
And our cautionary tale is be respectful, because whether this is mistaken identity and something else paranormal,
Mhm.
do as the rules say. Don't go out seeking them.
No.
If they come to you, try to find the logical. And if you can't find a logical explanation, pull out your camera and take a picture of it and send it in to psychic@skeptic@gmail.com.
Right. Have fun, y'all.
So you can find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, and thank you for listening.
Because you know, the paranormal is the normal.
Not yet understood.